What are you doing?
I first noticed something off when Mia had just started middle school. It was when she was rustling around in the changing room while taking a bath.
Huh? Just looking for something. Looking for something? Yeah. I thought I had put it in my pocket.
I immediately realized that it was a lie. My husband hadn't taken his bath yet. Not only that, but his clothes weren't in the basket in the changing room. Then Mia came out of the bath.
What are you doing?
Sorry. I'll be out in a sec. Come on, let's go.
Okay.
My husband seemed unsatisfied, as if he had some unfinished business. After that, he continued to repeat similar actions behind my back. Each time, Mia would give me a look as if she wanted to say something.
Is something wrong?
No, it's nothing. At that time, I wasn't too worried. Unaware of my mistake. After all, my husband and Mia had seemed really close even before we remarried. Then, my husband started to prioritize Mia. Maybe it was because she was his stepdaughter, but it still seemed a bit much.
Next Sunday, Mia and I are gonna go out. Sunday? Where to? Well, we'll figure that out later. Wait, didn't Mia have plans already for that day? Oh, it seems they got cancelled.
That day, I had to work, so I couldn't go with them. More to the point, I wasn't even invited. Things started to move about a month later.
There's a parent-teacher conference coming up. Is it that time already? Yeah, and I want Mom to come.
Mia's expression seemed to plead something serious. It looked like she was really pressed.
Okay. I'll go on that day.
And I'd like to keep this from Dad.
If that's what Mia wants. Thank you.
So, we approached the day of the conference. I met up with Mia at school, but something seemed off. She was unusually quiet, almost tense. Then, during a break in the three-way conference.
May I have a word? Oh, yes.
With that, I was called out into the hallway. A bit nervous about what it might be.
Oh, well, the thing is. I'm sorry. I actually wanted to discuss something concerning Mia.
Hearing this, I had an inkling.
Is the reason Mia has been down because of this?
Yes. Her expression turned serious.
It may be impolite to say this, but I would advise you to consider separating from your husband. What do you mean by that?
Who could have imagined being told something like this by a teacher? No, it's unimaginable. Mia told me. The teacher continued to explain. Hearing it, I was speechless. If what the teacher was saying was true. Thinking about what might have happened to Mia made me feel sick. I found myself crouching down on the spot.
Are you okay?
I'm sorry. I just felt a bit sick. But I'll calm down soon. I was helped back to the classroom. Seeing my condition, Mia rushed over.
Mom! Are you okay? I'm sorry for keeping quiet. It's my fault.
It's not your fault. I'm the one to blame. That's not true. You're not at fault. I hugged my daughter. There's something else I haven't told you yet.
Yeah?
Your father and I. Receiving further shocking news. Just how much more was my husband going to deceive me? The anger I felt made the nausea disappear.
I won't let it end like this.
Mom?
It's okay. You don't have to worry. I'll make that bastard pay. He's gonna suffer for what he did to his lovely daughter.
My resolve is unshakable.
If there's anything we can do at school, just let us know. Thank you. I will call on you when needed.
After thanking the teacher, we left the school. What should we do now?
First, your safety is the top priority.
But if we do that, Mom.
I'll be fine. You know I'm strong in situations like this.
I know, but...
For now, Mia, why don't you stay with Grandma? I'll settle things in the meantime.
Okay. I immediately contacted our parents and asked them to take care of Mia.
Yeah. I need to settle everything. All right. Be careful. I will. So, please take good care of Mia.
I met up with my mom at the station and left Mia with her. What I'm heading to now is, in a sense, a battlefield. I can't run away, I have to protect my daughter. I'm Sophia, 43, working in sales. My husband, Kai, also 43, was working at the city hall. I married Kai 8 years ago. I hadn't had children yet, so considering my age, it was now or never.
About having kids. I was thinking the same thing. So,
after our discussion, we concluded not to have children. This was because we already had a 15-year-old daughter, Mia. Though she wasn't related to me by blood. Kai and I were both remarried. My reason for divorce was a common one, my ex-husband's infidelity. As for Kai.
What? Really?
I was too embarrassed to bring it up.
Well, there must be various reasons, and I won't pry too deep. No, I'd actually feel better if you asked.
Kai was divorced 5 times. Honestly, how many times he'd been divorced didn't matter to me. I made the decision to remarry myself. Not a very fun story, huh?
No, it's not about being fun. You just had really bad luck.
But meeting Sophia was really lucky for me.
Really?
Yeah, who would have thought we'd meet there? Kai and I met at a bakery. I was such a fan of bread that I went there once a week, always the same place. By chance, I sat next to Kai, and from then on, we ended up seeing each other there at the same time every week.
But I was surprised that time. Right? And then seeing each other every week. We both must really love bread. It was just a random place I tried, but I got hooked. It's delicious, after all. Maybe next time we can all go together. Oh, that sounds good.
Our fateful meeting at the bakery led us to gradually start talking, and before we knew it, we were dating. Our relationship smoothly continued, and we remarried a year later. I was surprised that he had a child, but Mia was such a good kid, and I think we had built a good relationship even before the remarriage. So, even though we aren't biologically related, I never really think about her being my stepdaughter. She was 6 at the time, but Mia was understanding and smart.
Mia doesn't look much like Kai, does she?
One day, I said that. I didn't mean anything by it, but I remember Kai's expression darkened a little. Sorry. That was thoughtless of me.
Don't worry about it. I've been told that a lot.
Kai quickly smiled again, which was a relief. But this incident made me realize it was better to avoid this topic. Regarding parenting, there were no major issues, and Kai helped out a lot despite his busy schedule. However, there was something that bothered me. It was about meals.
Which do you prefer, Mia, Dad's or Mom's cooking? Dad's? Oh, thanks.
Mia choosing Kai without much thought was a bit tough for me to take. Kai would cook instead when I was busy with work, but still, I had my maternal pride. When I looked a bit gloomy, there's no need to compare. I love your cooking, and so does Mia, right? Yeah.
And you know, Mia and I had a long time just the two of us, so she's just used to it.
Well, Mia was eating well, so it was manageable. But that wasn't all. Mia had been like this before, but since starting elementary school, she had been getting sick more often.
What? She left school early again? Yeah, I think it's probably a cold. She's resting at home now. Is that so? We're okay here.
Due to work, I often left things to Kai when it came to these situations. It would have been fine occasionally, but even when at home, there were many times she wasn't feeling well.
Maybe we should get her checked out at a bigger hospital. I thought so too and took her once, but they couldn't really find anything specific. Plus, it was like this even before we got remarried. Really? I think it's just the change in environment. I hope that's all it is.
Maybe Kai was used to it, or he didn't seem too worried. Even when she would get sick, Kai handled it almost mechanically. Isn't that a bit rough?
Huh? Not really.
Maybe be a little gentler.
I am being gentle enough. Don't do unnecessary things.
That was the first time I felt scolded to this extent since we got married. Did I do something wrong? All I did was worry about Mia. As Mia grew, Kai began to exhibit a strange attitude, different from being overprotective. As she grew older, her health stabilized significantly. After starting middle school, she got really into extracurriculars, which meant she was home even less. It's natural for children to grow up, but Kai seemed increasingly irritated. Especially on weekends when she would go out after returning from her activities.
You don't have to eat in such a hurry. I need to get to the meeting place on time. Even so, you should at least eat slowly.
I know, but... After finishing her meal, Mia would leave immediately. Really? Who does she take after? Well, certainly not me. Watching the overly energetic Mia, I wondered what all those past illnesses were about. While I was thinking this, Kai came home.
Where's Mia? Oh, she's out with friends. Again? Isn't that too often lately? She's in middle school now, it's normal. Plus, she always respects her curfew. It's not about that. Then what is it about? Huh? It's none of your business.
With that, Kai lay down on the sofa and closed his eyes. That meant he didn't want to be talked to any further. Kai's outbursts continued unabated, and he had even bought her a smartphone.
Really? Yes. You've been wanting one for a while, but remember to not overuse it. I know.
Then, on a certain Sunday,
I'm heading out. Make sure to come back not too late. Okay.
Previously, Kai would have grumbled and complained here. However, today he seemed unusually calm. Sitting on the sofa, he was staring intently at his smartphone. What is he looking at so intently? I peeked over and saw a map displayed on the screen. That would have been fine. But what was shown on the screen was Mia's name. I couldn't help but exclaim when I saw it.
What is this? You saw it, huh? What are you doing?
Can't help it now. This is a monitoring app. It tells me where she is right now.
Does Mia know about this?
No, she doesn't. At that moment, I realized something. If I'm right about what I'm thinking, Kai is doing something terrible.
You didn't give her the smartphone just for this, did you?
Kai answered with a laugh. Of course, yes. It's to protect our precious daughter. What's wrong with that? It's too late if something happens.
I understand, but this is too much.
That's just too much, no matter how you look at it. Listen. Don't tell Mia about this.
How could I even say something like that?
What would she say if she knew her father was monitoring her? I might not be able to recover if I were in her shoes. Just when I thought it was over, it wasn't. Even at home, Kai tried to always be near Mia. As I paid attention to Kai's actions and continued living, Mia began to change.
Could you help me clean up a bit?
Sorry, I can't right now.
Busy? Then I'll ask you again some other time.
For some reason, Mia started avoiding me. She would only speak a word or two when I addressed her. To anyone's eyes, it was clear she didn't want to engage with me. But I can't think of any reason. Mia has started talking to me much less.
What's wrong? You don't seem well.
It's nothing.
Is it about Mia? It's probably just adolescence, you know?
I don't think that's it.
Well, don't overthink it.
Kai had an unusually cheerful expression. Especially Mia, she was really quiet when with Kai. Furthermore,
I'm going back to my parents' house tomorrow. That's quite sudden. My parents want to see Mia. Oh, is that so? Then. By the way, it'll just be the two of us going. Take care of the house. Okay.
That was my response. I had only met my in-laws once when we remarried, and hadn't seen them since. So, it was hard for me to say that I wanted to go too. This would be the first time Kai and Mia went out alone since we got remarried.
Well, we're heading out. Take care.
As usual, Mia wouldn't even make eye contact. Being home alone is really lonely. Even without conversation, just being near each other is comforting. I was about to go to sleep when Mia called.
What's up at this hour?
I hadn't talked to her in a while, so I found it hard to speak properly. Are you?
What?
I couldn't hear her well.
Could you say that again?
Do you think I'm a bother?
What?
Where did that come from? I've never once thought of Mia as a bother. Really?
Of course not. Even if we're not blood related, you're my precious daughter.
But...
Did Dad say something to you?
Yeah. Mia told me that Kai took advantage of my absence to falsely claim that I said Mia was a nuisance. Mia believed him, and that's why she acted that way. However, she had doubts about what Kai said, and that's why she called me. He really did something unnecessary.
What's your dad doing now?
He's sleeping. I'll get yelled at again if he finds me.
Again?
When I'm on the phone or using my smartphone, he demands to know who I'm talking to. He insists I make calls only in his presence. It's almost like being a slave.
So, how about over there?
Well, about that, we weren't really going to my grandfather's house.
What? What do you mean?
Sorry, it looks like Dad woke up. The call was then cut off. What was she trying to say? I tried calling back, but there was no answer. All I could do was wait for the two of them to return.
We're back.
I'm back. Kai was upbeat, but Mia was the opposite. Their contrasting attitudes highlighted the strangeness.
I'm tired, I'm going to lie down for a bit. Okay. Then Mia and I will go shopping. All right, have fun. Let's go then.
I took Mia outside. The shopping was just a plausible excuse.
Sorry for dragging you out suddenly. It's okay. I wouldn't be able to talk to you properly otherwise. But it's strange that your dad didn't object. He must have been really tired.
We entered a nearby cafe. Kai wouldn't come here.
So, about the phone call yesterday.
Yeah, I know.
What were you trying to say?
Mia slowly began to speak. She had said they were going to her grandparents' house, but that wasn't true. The two of them had actually gone to a resort in the neighboring state.
Why did you hide this from me?
I don't know. He probably took advantage of the fact that I'm not very close with my in-laws. I can't understand why Kai would do such a thing. As I continued to ask, more of Kai's perplexing actions came to light.
So it was like this even before we got married?
Yeah. It was the same with his previous wife. I hate to ask, but did that contribute to their divorce? I'm sorry. I don't know.
I see. You were too young at the time. Maybe it's too risky to bring this up suddenly.
The fear of him lashing out was the scariest thing. It was fine for me, but there could be a danger to Mia.
But we can't just leave things as they are, can we?
I'll be okay.
Really? Then I'll try talking to him.
We stopped by the supermarket before heading home. I asked Mia to stay in her room, and I confronted Kai, who was awake.
I'm going to ask you directly, where were you yesterday? What's this all of a sudden? I called your mom to say hello, and she said you hadn't visited. Why's that? Sticking your nose where it doesn't belong.
Sticking my nose? Even though you hid it from me?
It doesn't matter where I go. Yes, it does matter.
The argument continued, but nothing was resolved. However, there was one good outcome. My questioning prevented similar situations from occurring. We then spent relatively peaceful days, but that was short-lived. Kai's view of me became full of suspicion, and he always wanted to know what I was doing.
What are you doing?
I noticed further strange behavior not long after Mia became a junior in high school. It was when she was in the changing room while taking a bath.
What? Just looking for something.
Looking for something?
Yeah, I thought I had put it in my pocket.
I immediately realized it was a lie. My husband hadn't yet taken his bath. Not only that, but his clothes weren't in the basket in the changing room. Then Mia came out of the bath.
What are you doing?
Sorry. I'll be out soon. Come on, let's go.
Okay.
Kai seemed unconvinced, as if he was left with a sense of incompleteness. He continued to repeat similar actions behind my back. Each time, Mia looked like she wanted to tell me something.
What's wrong?
Nothing. It's nothing. At that time, I wasn't too worried. Unaware of my mistake. Even before we remarried, Kai and Mia seemed to get along really well. Then, Kai began to prioritize Mia. Maybe because she was his stepdaughter, but it still felt like too much.
Next Sunday, Mia and I are going out. Sunday? Where are you going? We'll figure it out. Wait, didn't Mia have plans that day? Oh, it seems they got cancelled.
That day, I couldn't go with them because I had to work. More precisely, I wasn't even invited. The situation started to move about a month later.
There's a parent-teacher conference coming up. Is it that time already? Yeah, and I want Mom to come.
Mia's expression seemed to plead something serious. It seemed like she was really pressed.
Okay. I'll go on that day.
And I'd like to keep this from Dad.
If that's what Mia wants. Thank you.
So, we approached the day of the conference. I met up with Mia at school, but she seemed unusually quiet, almost tense. Then, during a break in the three-way conference.
May I have a word? Oh, yes.
With that, I was called out into the hallway. A bit nervous about what it might be.
Oh, well, the thing is.
I'm sorry. I actually wanted to discuss something concerning Mia. Hearing this, I had an inkling.
Could my daughter's lack of energy be because of this?
Yes. His face turned serious.
I hate to say this, but I recommend that you consider separating from your husband. What do you mean by that?
Who could have imagined being told such a thing by a teacher? No, it's unimaginable. Mia told me. The teacher continued to explain. Hearing it, I was speechless. If what the teacher was saying was true. Thinking about what might have happened to Mia made me feel sick. I inadvertently crouched down on the spot.
Are you okay? Sorry. I just felt a bit sick. But I'll calm down soon.
I was helped back to the classroom. Seeing my condition, Mia rushed over.
Mom! Are you okay? I'm sorry for keeping quiet. It's my fault.
It's not your fault. I'm the one to blame. That's not true. You're not at fault. I hugged my daughter.
There's something else I haven't told you yet.
Yeah? Your father and I. Receiving further shocking news. Just how much more was my husband going to deceive me? The anger I felt made the nausea disappear.
I won't let it end like this.
Mom?
It's okay. You don't have to worry. I'll make that bastard pay. He's gonna suffer for what he did to his lovely daughter.
My resolve is unshakable.
If there's anything we can do at school, just let us know. Thank you. I will call on you when needed.
After thanking the teacher, we left the school. What should we do now?
First, your safety is the top priority. But if we do that, Mom, I'll be fine. You know I'm strong in situations like this.
I know, but...
For now, Mia, why don't you stay with Grandma? I'll settle things in the meantime.
Okay. I immediately contacted my parents and asked them to take care of Mia.
I have to settle some things. Understood. You be careful, too. Don't worry. So, please take good care of Mia.
I met up with my mother at the station and left Mia with her. What I was heading towards was, in a sense, a battlefield. I couldn't just run away, I had to protect my daughter. I took a deep breath and opened the door to the house.
There's something important I need to discuss. Important? What about Mia? I've left Mia with my mother. What? Why did you do that without asking? Without asking? That's on you. Just go get her back.
Realizing this conversation was going nowhere, I showed him the smartphone Mia had left with me.
That's Mia's phone.
Mia had recorded her conversations with Kai for such a moment.
Can you still behave like this after listening to this?
The content of the recording was horrifying. It revealed Kai's true nature, trying to initiate a physical relationship with Mia, who was still too young and vulnerable.
To think you would do such a thing to your own daughter. That's disgusting. That's a lie you made up. Even now. You should know the school is aware of this too. There's no escape now.
Kai, perhaps realizing he was trapped, remained silent, looking down. I should probably call the police. That's when it happened. He grabbed Mia's smartphone from the desk and smashed it on the floor, likely trying to destroy the evidence.
So, you think that destroys the evidence? That just means you admit what you did. If there's no evidence like this, it means nothing.
What a foolish man. As if I hadn't taken precautions.
Bad timing for you, but I backed up the data online, so that was pointless.
Too bad.
You. Also, I heard directly from Mia that there's no blood relation between you two. Did she tell you that? Maybe you divorced to keep Mia all to yourself? That would be despicable. Did she say that too? That's just my guess. But your reaction makes me think it's spot on, isn't it?
This time, Kai showed a look of utter despair.
Well, such things cannot be allowed. I'm planning to go to the police now. Good luck. The police? Of course. Are you stupid? Just give up already. Wait. It's no use. Goodbye.
As I was about to leave through the front door.
Please, no police. What? You should have thought of that before doing anything. It's too late for such pitiful pleas.
Despite his desperation, Kai broke down and clung to my legs, crying.
Get off me.
I shook my legs left and right, but he was strong, being a man. Realizing I couldn't escape this way, I had an idea.
If you keep making trouble, I'll have to inform your workplace too.
At that, Kai quickly let go of my legs.
This is a real goodbye then.
With that, I was finally able to leave the house. I've come this far, of course, I'm going to contact his workplace. Afterward, I went to pick up Mia from my parents' house.
Mom, are you okay? Of course. I'm fine. I'm thinking of calling the police now. Yes. I want to be with you, Mom. Thank you.
I immediately took the recorded smartphone to the police station. Upon consultation, they assured me they would conduct a thorough investigation. This might give me some peace of mind. Then, I proceeded with the preparations for divorce. Eventually, we were able to divorce safely. What Kai did was unforgivable.
Now Mia won't have to suffer anymore. Yes.
I'm sorry I didn't realize sooner.
No, Mom. I was saved because of you.
We stayed with my parents for a while, but soon moved to a new town. Eventually, Kai was arrested. This fact reached his workplace, and he was duly fired. Furthermore, the case made the news.
That's Dad, isn't it?
Yes.
We're better off not watching this. Such a scumbag.
Right. I had a chance to visit Kai, and he truly seemed like a different person.
You look very tired. How is Mia doing? I have no obligation to tell you. After all, you will never see her again. What have I done? It's too late for regrets now. You should reflect on your actions behind bars.
If anything related to my ex-husband causes Mia distress in the future, I want to be there to fully support her. Moreover, she manages everything perfectly without even doing household chores.
Did you do it again?
Yes.
You're busy too, Mom.
That's true, but
I can handle at least this much.
Mia will surely make a great wife someday. I hope she doesn't choose someone like her father. And I can't just be a mother who relies on her daughter. I need to be more responsible as a mother, as I watch over her.
I brought something for you. Here it is.
I watched closely as Jason handed a cake box to my mother. Jason's forced smile made me feel a bit uneasy. I quietly took the cake box from him. After slightly opening the box and confirming its contents, I threw it into the trash.
Hey! What do you think you're doing?
Jason and my mother simultaneously looked at me and expressed their anger at what had happened in front of them.
What I did?
I asked my mother, amazed.
Did you see what was inside the cake?
My mother began to tremble at the unexpected question, as if she didn't think it was possible. I glared at Jason to confirm if my suspicions were correct. Jason looked frustrated and upset. Just as I thought. I clenched my fist, ready to get back at Jason for what he had done. My name's Jessica Smith. I'm 36 and I work as a caregiver. Work is busy every day, and by the time I get home at night after leaving early in the morning, I'm completely worn out. I knew the job would be physically demanding, but since getting married to Jason a year ago, we hardly see each other. Jason, on his end, works as a long-haul truck driver with irregular hours, adding to our difficulties in finding quality time together. Anyhow, we know we need to address our marital issues soon, but with both of us buried in our jobs, it's been hard to communicate. Our initial meeting was through a mutual friend. I've always been shy when it comes to love. After becoming a caregiver, I often declined invitations to social events after work. I wasn't the type to actively seek out a relationship, and after a long day at work, I just couldn't muster the energy to go out. Most of my peers were desperately looking for partners as they approached the marriageable age. Even if they were tired from work, they'd make the effort to find a romantic partner. While watching my friends passionately tackle their challenges, I, who had been nonchalantly avoiding relationships, suddenly started feeling the pressure after turning 30. Especially as everyone around me began getting married or having children. I can't go on like this. Even if I'm shy when it comes to love, I had always wanted to marry someday. So, I reached out to a friend who once invited me to a singles party, and she introduced me to a man of my age. That was my husband Jason. Jason was 2 years older than me. He was always calm and composed, so I could sense the maturity that came with his age. What I needed wasn't a fiery romance, but a stable, quiet marital life. I liked him right away. Our interests aligned, and things moved quickly. We started dating and tied the knot a year ago. We began our marital life living with my mother. Without a father, I felt bad about leaving my mother alone after getting married. I thought Jason might object to living with my mother, but he was surprisingly okay with it. Though it took some time, I was able to get married and now live together with my mother. Everything seemed to fall into place and I was at ease, but from there, unexpected developments awaited. Something I couldn't have predicted just after our marriage. Right after Jason and I got married, there was an incident at my workplace. Several employees quit in succession. The reasons people gave for quitting varied widely. Some left to get married, while others wanted a change in career. While they probably didn't consult each other and quit all at once, the end result was that those left behind had to take on twice the amount of work as before. So, I started coming home later than ever before, and our lives became even more out of sync. So, when I left work on time for the first time in a while and sat down at the dinner table with Jason and my mother, I noticed the atmosphere in the house was incredibly tense.
Hey, did you take care of that thing we talked about the other day? What thing? You forgot? I told you to open an account at M-Bank. Right. I forgot, my apologies. How could you? I told you countless times. It's really thoughtless of you to forget.
My mother looked amazed at Jason, sighing heavily. There seemed to be some exchange between them that I wasn't aware of, but Jason had forgotten something my mother had asked him to do.
What do you mean by bank? Well, Jessica, you have an account with M-Bank, right? We never know what the future holds, and I think it would be wise for Jason to have one too, but he just won't listen. I'm really sorry, I truly just forgot. Oh, really? Well, if that's the case, it's fine.
Indeed, I have an account with M-Bank. My mother deposits a small amount into that account every month, thinking of the unforeseen future. Probably, she plans to save for Jason as well. But Jason doesn't seem to get that she's trying to save for him, he just hears it as a demand to open an account. My mother has a bit of a bad habit. She speaks in a curt way, which can come off as cold. Because Jason doesn't get her real intentions, their conversations often miss the mark. That being said, I myself haven't been able to talk properly with my mother lately, so I've often had fights with her.
Come on, Jason is busy too. No need to be so hard on him. You always say things so carelessly, not understanding the gravity of what I'm trying to convey.
Not only is her tone sharp, but my mother also gets emotional quickly. So at that time too, it seemed that she was angry because her daughter didn't appreciate her kindness. That night in our bedroom, Jason said to me,
"Your mom always seems to be nagging me. She gives me these confusing commands. Every day, until you get home, she's like a broken record telling me to get insurance, invest my money, and all that jazz. I'm exhausted from work and I just can't deal with her anymore." My mom had a time in the past when she didn't have money, and she's just worried. Instead of saying that, please just listen to her a bit.
Knowing my mother's concerns, I tried to pacify the complaining Jason. On the surface, Jason seems to get along with my mother, but deep down he seemed to resent her. I get where he's coming from. I understand how annoying it can be to have someone go on and on about something you're not interested in, and even more so, how tiring it is to be constantly told what to do. But my mother just wants to ensure that Jason and I won't face financial hardships in the future.
I can't stand it anymore. I'll deal with insurance and investments when I feel like it. As for the M-Bank account, it's obvious she'll only use it for her deposits or investments. Nowadays, you can't have multiple accounts at the same bank. M-Bank is the closest to our house and she just wants an account, it's as clear as day.
Normally calm, Jason becomes very emotional about my mother. Being able to empathize with both my mother's feelings and Jason's frustrations, I simply nodded to Jason's story, letting out a sigh, wondering if there wasn't some way to resolve things.
It might be better if we lived separately. That way, we wouldn't have to deal with her constant nagging. Hey!
Jason knows I don't want to leave my mother alone. Making such a spiteful remark seemed rather mean-spirited to me.
I'm just kidding. I'm gonna do whatever she asks. Whether it's an account or whatever, I should just set it up for her, right?
He finally commented in a resigned tone, lying down on the bed in a huff. I didn't have any more to add, feeling uneasy. I just closed my eyes and lay down like Jason. So, after living together, it had been almost a year since the three of us had started living together and our feelings had remained at odds with each other. I feared that our days of discomfort would just continue, but an unexpected incident occurred.
Cancer!
Yes,
it's really frustrating to find out about this at my age.
One day, when I returned home a bit earlier than usual, my mother nonchalantly told me she'd been diagnosed with cancer. Jason hadn't returned yet, and it seemed like a good time for her to break the news.
Oh no! Is it serious? How advanced is it? It doesn't seem too serious yet, but I'm gonna have surgery soon and will probably be hospitalized for a bit. Can you handle the housework?
My mother, more concerned about whether I can do the housework than her own surgery, leaves me wondering if she's being kind or just interfering. Either way, her concern over something so trivial irritated me, somehow.
Of course I can manage. How old do you think I am? What's with you? I'm really worried about you. You're crabby. I get it without you saying it every time. I can handle the housework, you just focus on getting better.
I don't even know why I'm getting so worked up, but the fact that my mother has cancer seems to have hit me harder than I thought. I just can't be honest with my feeling, and I found myself frustrated again at not being able to offer my mother any comforting words.
All right, I get it. Jason would listen without any fuss.
My mother doesn't know what Jason really thinks about her behind her back. So, seeing Jason nod on the surface in agreement to her requests, which almost sound like orders, she probably believes that Jason is on her side. While she scolds Jason in a stern tone at times, she doesn't seem to be genuinely mad at him. In reality, Jason always begrudgingly listens to my mother, and he's never seriously paid attention to what she says. I want to tell that to her, but given my current standing, I can't say anything to my mother. Even though I'm truly on my mother's side, not Jason, all I could do was murmur it in my heart. Afterwards, my mother informed Jason that she has cancer and needs surgery. I don't know how Jason reacted, but seeing the peaceful look on my mother's face before she slept, I could tell she was comforted just the right amount. However, as expected, Jason seemed deeply disturbed upon hearing about my mother's illness.
How bad is your mother's illness?
I'm not sure.
All she told me was that it wasn't that bad. Is that so?
Jason didn't seem convinced at all, and showed a cryptic reaction. With my heart in turmoil, I tried to calm down as I headed to bed. That was the end of our conversation for the day, and Jason and I went to sleep amidst the chilling silence. From that day, even more so than before, I continued living a life without crossing paths with Jason at all. It seems that my mother and Jason rarely see each other. In that case, when on earth does Jason come home? I usually go to bed before Jason returned and start my day either before he wakes up or after he has left. This is exactly what it feels like to live separately within the same house. I was starting to suspect Jason, having no idea what he was thinking. While I continued living a life without crossing paths with Jason, the day of my mother's surgery finally arrived.
I wonder if Jason will come.
My mother sighed in her hospital room before entering the operating room.
Even though Jason won't come, I'm here.
Jason. There's no need to prioritize a son-in-law over one's own daughter, especially at a time like this. Having such bitter thoughts, I wonder if I'm a narrow-minded daughter. I kept my surprise hidden and simply cheered my mother on as she headed to the operating room.
You got this.
The surgery ended roughly 6 hours later. During that time, Jason never showed up. Of course, I had informed him, and he should have known today was the day of my mother's surgery. I just had to assume he was busy with work. The surgery was successful, and the cancer cells in my mother were temporarily removed. She would need to stay hospitalized for a while, but I sincerely hoped she would fully recover. When my mother woke up from the anesthesia, she seemed distracted ever since she was briefed by the doctor. Of course, she was happy about the successful surgery, but she couldn't help but wonder when Jason would come to visit.
Don't worry so much. He'll come eventually.
Maybe Jason's fed up with me. Oh dear. My mother, who's emotionally volatile, upon realizing that Jason's taking forever to show up, can't help but doubt that she might be disliked. While her suspicions aren't entirely wrong, she still believes that Jason is on her side, so she probably feels betrayed. While comforting my agitated mother, I listened to her complaints throughout her hospital stay with a heavy heart. A week after the surgery, Jason finally came to visit. It just so happened that I was visiting after work, and I could see my mother's face light up when Jason arrived.
Hey, how are you feeling? I thought you'd never come, Jason.
My mother's tone made it sound like she had been waiting for a lover, which embarrassed me.
I brought something for you. Here it is.
I watched closely as Jason handed a cake box to my mother. Jason's forced smile made me feel a bit uneasy. I quietly took the cake box from him. After slightly opening the box and confirming its contents, I threw it into the trash.
Hey! What do you think you're doing?
Jason and my mother simultaneously looked at me and expressed their anger at what had happened in front of them.
What I did?
I asked my mother, amazed.
Did you see what was inside the cake?
My mother began to tremble at the unexpected question, as if she didn't think it was possible. I glared at Jason to confirm if my suspicions were correct. Jason looked frustrated and upset. Just as I thought. I clenched my fist, ready to get back at Jason for what he had done.
What the hell, Jessica? Throwing away the gift I specifically bought.
Jason immediately adopted an aggressive stance, as if to argue that what he'd done was right.
What do you mean? You should know better than anyone else, shouldn't you?
I wasn't about to let Jason have the last word. For a long time, Jason and I had been living past each other, and confronting him directly like this was somewhat intimidating. But I couldn't let my mother suffer because of Jason's malice. That was the one thing I absolutely needed to prevent.
What are you talking about? Hey, try the cake. It's delicious.
Jason retrieved the cake box from the trash and pulled out the contents. It looked like a standard cream cake. But I recognized instantly. The cake wasn't from a bakery. As evidence, the cream was unevenly spread, and the strawberries on top looked somewhat pale and damaged. Yet, my mother didn't seem to notice such details, and she gazed at the cake, asking, "Huh?
Hold on, let me try it first."
I swiftly grabbed the cake from between Jason and my mother, who were close to each other, and took a bite from the edge. I really didn't want to, but there was no other choice. This was the only way to prove Jason's wrongdoing. After taking a bite at the cake, I immediately sensed something was off. First, it was incredibly salty. So salty and bad that I felt like throwing up. There was also an overpowering smell of alcohol, far more than what would normally be in such a dessert. I spit the cake into a tissue that was in the hospital room. Seeing my reaction, I could tell my mother's expression stiffened.
This is unbelievable. What's with this taste? Loads of salt and alcohol. Aren't these the very things a cancer patient shouldn't consume?
Even for healthy individuals, consuming too much salt and alcohol is toxic. For cancer patients, it further increases the risk of the disease. The idea that he intentionally wanted to feed this to my mother was horrifying. As Jason didn't anticipate I'd taste the cake, I could see him go pale.
You knew Mom's cancer treatment caused taste disturbances. So, you brought this. What's your aim?
It's not uncommon for cancer patients to have taste disturbances from treatments. I remember my mother telling me recently, I can't taste the food. Given her surgery, it should improve. But if Jason was aware of my mother's taste issues, it's not surprising he thought of the alcoholic cake. My mother looked at Jason with sheer terror. She seemed to have finally realized that he wasn't on her side. And as for Jason, he finally abandoned the facade of goodwill, lifted the corner of his eye and spoke with a defiant expression.
The goal? It's obvious. To hasten this old hag's disease and cash in on the insurance money.
Jason let out a loud, almost hysterical laugh. He's insane. He bragged about doing it for the insurance money, and tried to harm my mother. To know he had such intentions and would brazenly admit to them was horrifying. A chill ran down my spine.
Huh? Do you even realize what you were trying to do? That's a crime, you know. I know, and I don't care if I become a criminal. I just want to get rid of this old hag as soon as possible.
It's clear that when Jason scornfully referred to my mother as an old hag and tried to make her eat the poisoned cake, the image of Jason inside my mother's mind completely crumbled. That's how much my mother had a look of despair on her face.
You're always nagging me, telling me to do this and that, and you get mad when I don't obey. My life isn't just for you, old hag. Don't order me around. It makes me sick.
Jason vents the pent-up frustrations he's felt up until now at my mother. My mother looked at Jason with shocked eyes.
I just didn't want you to struggle with money, Jason. I don't care about that. I decide for myself. Don't interfere in my life every single time. Damn it, you ruined my plan. What are you gonna do, Jessica?
Jason glared at me while stamping his foot angrily. I held my head up high, trying not to be cowed by his snake-like eyes. In the corner of my vision, I could see my mother's frail body, crushed by despair. Wait for me, Mom. I'll drive this guy away.
Sorry to break it to you, but instead of getting insurance money, you're the one who's gonna have to pay alimony. Huh? What the hell are you talking about?
Jason laughed scornfully. He still hasn't realized. There's no way I'd confront you like this without any ammunition. I took out a large envelope from my bag and scattered its contents at Jason's feet. Seeing the contents of the envelope, the color drained from Jason's face in an instant. Looks like he recognized them. That makes things easier.
These were investigated by a private investigator. I suspected you might be cheating. To my surprise, so much evidence came out so quickly. How's it going with your mistress?
What I had laid out in front of Jason were numerous evidences of his affair brought by the investigator. Most of the photos are of him with his mistress. I didn't really want to look directly at the photos, but seeing Jason in them, leering and intertwining his arm with that woman's, fueled my determination.
How's it going? What the hell are you talking about? This is so unfair.
Realizing he could no longer make excuses with such evidence presented to him, Jason didn't try to dodge the blame. Instead, he lashed out, trying to paint me as the villain. But to me, it just sounded like the whining of a loser. No matter how much Jason shouted, I wasn't scared at all.
Unfair? Who's being unfair? Sneaking around cheating on me while pretending to be busy, and then trying to do something terrible to my mom? Unbelievable. I thought you were busy with work, but you were actually busy cheating, weren't you? I feel so stupid for feeling down because we were living separate lives.
Reflecting on my life up until now, tears naturally welled up in my eyes. I got married later than everyone else around me, but I was so happy when I married Jason. It saddened me that Jason would speak ill of my mother and that we could no longer hold a conversation together. My pent-up sadness and frustration that I couldn't vent to anyone suddenly exploded. Yet, even seeing me like that, Jason just sneered at me.
I don't care about that. I was planning to live happily with Emma after getting a ton of insurance money. But you ruined it, you damn woman.
Ignoring my feelings entirely, Jason continued to spew insults. Emma must be the name of his mistress. Doing my best to suppress my trembling body, I tried to retort to Jason. But before I could, my mother spoke up.
I've been listening, and Jason, you're unbelievable. Not only for what you tried to do to me, but how can you speak to Jessica like that? It's because of you and your daughter that I've never been happy in my married life. It's your fault.
Jason wasn't the calm and cool guy I once thought he was anymore. Distorted with ugliness, his desire to get away from me and my mother was painfully clear. My mother seemed to have finally lost her patience with Jason's incessant ranting.
Excuse me? Our fault? Do you have any idea how much we've considered you in our lives? I've been saving money for you every month. Jessica, even when she was super busy, has been juggling work and housework. And yet you trample on our efforts like this? It's unbelievable.
I could see the fire in my mother's eyes. Startled by her intensity, Jason took a step back.
Shut up! I never asked for any of that.
Jason tried to fight back against my mother, but it seemed to have no effect on her.
Shut up! Apologize to Jessica. And never come back home. Jessica can be happy without a jerk like you.
Hearing my mother shout, Jason finally fled the scene. The evidence of his infidelity remained scattered on the floor. I looked at my mother's face. Breathing heavily, my mother embodied the very image of a noble mother protecting her precious daughter.
Mom, thank you. That guy's unbelievable. Jessica, find a better man. You deserve more happiness.
I had thought my mother didn't care about me at all. But she stood up for me. She truly cared for me. Realizing that alone brought tears to my eyes, and I sobbed uncontrollably in her chest. She gently stroked my back. After that, on my way back from the hospital, I stopped by a lawyer's office and decided to proceed with the divorce process. When I got home, I immediately contacted Jason to let him know that I would be proceeding with the divorce process through a lawyer. Jason seemed to have talked to my lawyer. And just like that, our divorce was finalized smoothly. After that, Jason moved out. He's probably living with that so-called Emma. But I doubt they'll ever find true happiness. Through my lawyer, I intend to seek damages from Jason for trying to feed my mother a poisoned cake. Knowing Jason, who was hoping to rely on my mother's life insurance, he's probably tight on money now. Well, it's no longer my problem. Of course, I haven't given Jason the money that my mother had saved up for him. If nothing had happened, he wouldn't have had to worry about money. I hope he struggles. As for me, after my mother was discharged from the hospital, we started our life together. I moved to a workplace with shorter working hours so I could spend more time with my mother. I plan to enjoy life just with my mother for a while. I haven't yet given back to her. But now, I'm able to talk much more openly with my mother than before, and I'm truly happy now.
We don't need the old lady. You can deal with the deadweight.
Alicia, my sister-in-law, said with a smug smile. She probably doesn't care about Grandma as long as she gets the house. My brother also grinned, looking at Grandma and me. This isn't a place where Grandma can live her final days happily. That's why I declared. It's okay, I'll be with Grandma. My name is Amy Smith. I turned 50 this year. Currently, I live with my husband. We have 2 kids, but they moved out long ago after becoming adults. There were tough times juggling work and parenting when the kids were little, but looking back, it feels surprisingly short-lived. What fills the emptiness in my heart are my job, my husband, and Grandma. Currently, I work with my husband at a high-end restaurant. I run the place, while my husband, Jake, is the head chef. The reason I'm the owner is that I majored in business management in college and was interested in the restaurant business. At first, I wanted to provide my own dishes, but I quickly gave up. Seems like I didn't have a knack for cooking. Back in college, a posh hotel nearby was hiring kitchen helpers. Luckily, I got the job. But apparently, even as a part-timer, my cooking skills didn't meet professional standards. My knife skills were so bad that they quickly moved me to serving. Even if it was a lowly position, I wanted to gain some experience in the culinary world. It was my first setback. I ran straight to Grandma for comfort. After comforting me for a bit, Grandma looked me in the eyes and said, "Amy, I know you have dreams. But there isn't just one path. Some might be detours, but no road is useless. So, keep your chin up and give it a shot." Encouraged by Grandma's strong words, I replied,
Thanks, Grandma. I'm gonna give it my best shot.
Thanks to Grandma's words, I managed to keep going and continued my serving job throughout college. Grandma was always kind and always stood by my side. For someone like me, who lost both parents, she's the most dependable figure in my life. And then I met Jake. Jake was training as a chef at the same posh hotel where I worked part-time. Even though he was in training, he had been working there for about 5 years and was trusted with some parts of the cooking. One day, probably having heard from other staff, Jake found out about my interest in cooking. He said, "If you'd like, I can teach you. I'm still in training, so I can only show you the basics."
Really? Thank you so much.
I replied with a big smile. From then on, we started visiting each other's homes and began our cooking lessons. Since we couldn't use the hotel kitchen, we practiced in our own kitchens. As I learned from him, Jake and I got closer and eventually started dating. After 3 years of dating, we got married. We happily became a married couple. Even after our marriage, Jake continued his training at the high-end hotel. I took a job at a startup that managed multiple restaurants to learn about business management. There, I learned the ropes of running a business. It was a series of challenges, far more intricate than my college classes. I made mistakes countless times and got reprimanded by my bosses. However, as I continued to fail, I gradually accumulated successful experiences. In the end, using the startup company's program, I opened an upscale restaurant. Even though I was an employee, I successfully realized my dream of managing a restaurant. Of course, I chose Jake as the head chef. Jake had just finished his training, so he decided to leave his job at the luxury hotel without any regrets. And that's how Jake and I combined our strengths to run an upscale restaurant. Work is going smoothly, but my personal life has been put on the back burner. I'm so busy that the time I can spend with my grandmother has drastically decreased since my student days. For someone like me, my dependable grandmother now lives with my brother and his wife. My brother, Bob, who is 3 years older than me. However, he's a bit quirky. When I told him about becoming an entrepreneur using the startup company's program, he completely shot down the idea, saying, "Why are you doing something so high risk? Having a regular job is the most stable. Besides, being a salaried manager doesn't pay much and it's not even worth it." "Come on, Bob, don't you think that's a bit harsh?" "Sure, I'm using the company's program." I protested against Bob's blunt words. But Bob seemed unwilling to change his stance and continued to argue. "Listen, Amy. Stability is the key in this world. Yet, you live so recklessly. Your husband's the same, right? Both of you managing a business together is too reckless. If the restaurant fails, you both go down." "What?" I was taken aback. "Just remember, if things go south and you end up in debt, don't come running to me. I'm only looking out for Alicia." I was really shocked by this outburst. In my case, I have the support of my employer, so I'm not incurring any personal debt. But before I could retaliate, my sister-in-law, Alicia, chimed in. "You and your husband really live on the edge, don't you, Amy? But if things go bad, please don't rely on us." Hearing this, I resolved never to ask them for help, no matter how tough things got. The reason my grandmother ended up in the care of this couple was due to their unilateral decision and high-handedness. One day, when I visited my grandmother's house where she lived alone, Alicia answered the doorbell and blurted out, "Why are you here, Amy?" Surprised to see Alicia there, I asked, "Why are you here, Alicia? This is my grandmother's house." Realizing the situation, Alicia replied, "I've been living here since the other day to take care of Bob's grandmother. Got a problem with that? You're probably too busy with your restaurant anyway, right?" It was true, I had just started my upscale restaurant and was very busy. I couldn't always be by my grandmother's side. If something happened when Jake and I weren't there, it would be a disaster. On the other hand, Alicia was a housewife and could be with my grandmother during the day. Confidently, she said, "I can be with her." All I could reply was, "Please take care of her." After that, I often visited my grandmother's house. Every time I did, Alicia would sarcastically say, "Again? You need to let go of your grandmother." Still, I was worried about my grandmother. But this was her house. However, getting into an argument with Alicia, who was living with my grandmother, wasn't a good idea. So, I would say, "Sorry, I just wanted to see her for a bit," and kept visiting my grandmother. Every time I visited, my grandmother seemed happy to see me. But over time, she seemed to be losing her energy, and I was worried. Then, one day, as usual, I found her collapsed at the entrance. "Grandma, what happened? Hey, stay with me!" I shouted at my grandmother, but there was no response. In a panic, I called an ambulance and rushed to the hospital with my unconscious grandmother. "She has only 6 months left?" The doctor's prognosis was devastating. My beloved grandmother was seriously ill. Apparently, the hospital she was brought to was where her primary doctor practiced. According to the doctor, there was nothing more the hospital could do. They could only provide palliative care, and since my grandmother wished to be treated at home, they respected that decision. While I was hearing this devastating news from the doctor, a nurse informed me that my grandmother had woken up.
Grandma!
As I entered the hospital room, my grandmother looked in my direction.
Amy, I'm so sorry. I should have told you earlier.
Grandma murmured weakly. My eyes began to blur with tears.
Is it true? Why didn't you tell me sooner? Do Alicia and Bob know?
Tears streaming down my face, I asked her, and she slowly shook her head in response.
No one knows. I was planning to just quietly fade away all by myself.
Seeing Grandma like this saddened me deeply. At the same time, I felt that something needed to be done. Let's tell Alicia and Bob about it. Before I knew it, I had made this strong suggestion to her. Grandma seemed taken aback by my sudden proposal. Surely, with a situation as dire as this, even those troublemakers, my brother and his wife, would change their attitudes. At least, that's what I believed. 3 days later, Grandma was discharged from the hospital. But it wasn't a positive kind of discharge. There's simply nothing more the hospital could do for her. Supporting her, I took Grandma back to her house. When we entered her house, which she handed me the keys to, both Bob and Alicia were there, probably because it was Sunday.
Where have you been all this time? Anyway, it's been kind of nice without the old lady around.
Alicia was talking with laughter. Bob grinned and agreed, saying,
Indeed, it's relaxing not having that nagging old lady around.
Our grandma is visibly in a rough shape. Yet, I can't believe they would make such an inappropriate joke in front of her. I got so angry that I snapped back at them.
Both of you, cut it out. Grandma is sick and has only 6 months to live. She can barely stand now. How can you say such things?
When I shouted, they both seemed taken aback for a moment. But soon Bob, with a cynical laugh, muttered, You're kidding, right? Alicia didn't seem to believe it either. She smirked and looked at me. So, I told them with a stern face.
Sadly, it's true. If you think it's a lie, why don't you ask Grandma's primary physician?
Grandma, with her weak voice, also added,
I really do have only 6 months. I imagine I won't be able to do many things soon.
Upon hearing this, Alicia's face twisted.
What? So, I have to take care of her? I don't want to deal with that. I just came to this house to save on rent. I absolutely don't want to care for her. Old lady, just leave now.
Alicia waved her hand, shooing Grandma away. Tears formed in Grandma's eyes.
We don't need you, old lady. Amy will take care of you,
Alicia said smugly. Probably, as long as she gets the house, she doesn't care about Grandma. Bob was also smirking as he watched me and Grandma. He seemed to have no feelings for our grandma. She won't be happy in this place. So, I declared, It's okay, Grandma. I'll be by your side. I quickly countered,
This is Grandma's house. And she wishes to spend her last moments here.
However, Alicia stood her ground.
Sorry, Amy. I've always known that Bob and Alicia have bad attitudes, but I never thought it would come to this.
Grandma apologized repeatedly. She seemed on the verge of tears, her shoulders trembling. Seeing her like that hurt me. But Alicia looked at us with pure disdain.
Can you leave now?
You're in the way.
Also, don't come to us for help later, even if you regret it. We won't help you, not even with a cent.
She sighed deeply, looking very annoyed. Really? I definitely won't be taking care of Grandma. Don't expect us to look after her, Bob said, grimacing. It's Alicia and Bob who have imposed themselves on Grandma's home and been a burden. Yet, now that they know about her limited time left, they want to throw her out. I've come to truly despise Bob and Alicia. So, I responded for the last time.
I won't have anything to do with Bob or Alicia anymore. I'm gonna cut ties with you as family. If you regret it later, that's on you.
It seemed Grandma had also been bottling up her feelings about them, as she whispered,
"I won't see you two ever again. Goodbye. If we cut ties, it'll be easier when you end up in a lot of debt,"
Bob said with a chuckle.
"Exactly,"
Alicia added.
"If Amy ends up drowning in debt, it has nothing to do with us since we've cut ties. So, good luck with taking care of the frail old lady and dealing with your debt."
Ignoring Alicia's sarcastic wave, Grandma and I left the house. I brought Grandma to my home. As she stepped out of the taxi, she remarked,
"What a lovely house."
"In fact, our house is more than twice the size of Grandma's." Thanks to the company's policy, Jake and I, who run an upscale restaurant, receive not only a regular salary but also a special bonus. We get a cashback from the restaurant's profits. It's a unique system of our company. This system, which is like running an independent business, aims to motivate employees. Indeed, thanks to this policy, Jake and I receive a good income from the company with low risk. Our take-home pay is much higher than Bob's, who's just a regular worker. As I thought about that, the front door opened.
"Hello."
Jake greeted me with a smile. I had informed Jake via email beforehand, and he was waiting at home to welcome our grandmother. Jake has been so busy with work that he hasn't had the chance to visit, so today is a long-awaited reunion with our grandmother. Our grandmother looks extremely happy to see Jake. He quickly ushered her into the living room and served some tea. Sipping her tea, Grandmother seemed to relax a bit.
"For the past 6 months, I feel like I can finally live happily. I felt so out of place in that house,"
Grandmother muttered quietly. According to her, Alicia and her family had been neglecting Grandmother all along. They wouldn't even cook her portion of the meals, and sometimes Alicia even took Grandma's pension as part of the household expenses.
"That's awful,"
I blurted out. Jake looked upset as well. After a moment of heavy silence, Jake, with determination, stood up and said,
"I'm gonna do something about this. We should give them a taste of their own medicine."
I can't stand being pushed around like this. I'd regret not standing up for Grandmother. I got up as well and said,
"We'll make sure they regret it."
And so, we took a stand. A few days after we took action, my phone was flooded with calls from Bob's number. Even when ignored, the calls kept coming.
"I knew this would happen,"
I murmured. After letting it ring for quite some time, I finally answered. "Yes?"
"Finally! What the hell did you do?"
As soon as I answered, Alicia, sounding frantic, began questioning me. I figured she was using Bob's phone.
"What are you talking about?"
"I have no idea." I knew exactly what she was getting at, but I played dumb. Alicia, losing patience, pressed on.
"That's about Grandma's house. Suddenly, a real estate agent is demanding we vacate. Did you have something to do with this? It's our house now, mind your own business."
Alicia sounded cornered and irritated. Ignoring her outburst, I calmly responded. "Well, Grandma just sold her house. What's the problem?" Just because Alicia and her family lived there, they assumed ownership, but the house was still in Grandmother's name. I don't get why they felt entitled to it. Alicia, sounding even more flustered, shot back.
"Why did she sell it? We're living there. Is this some sort of revenge? Just because you're struggling doesn't mean you have to be envious."
She didn't seem to believe the house had been sold. This was going nowhere. So I decided to lay out the facts for Alicia. It's true. The sale is already finalized. The property now belongs to the realtor. If you continue to stay there, it'll be trespassing. Alicia sounded completely lost for words. Turns out, after Jake and I decided to act, he went to a real estate agency with Grandmother's power of attorney. They quickly moved through the selling process. By the way, when we explained the situation to Grandma, she was completely on board and signed the papers right away.
"I definitely don't want to hand the house over to Bob and his family,"
Grandmother had said, her face turning red with anger, which showed just how upset she was. As I explained the situation, Alicia began to panic on the other end.
So suddenly? Where are we supposed to live now? We even gave up our previous apartment.
And with that, she broke down over the phone. Actually, according to what my grandma told me, Alicia, despite being a stay-at-home mom, was quite the big spender. She'd casually buy designer handbags and never missed her monthly spa treatments. Bob is just an office worker and definitely not earning a high salary. Because of that, it seemed like Alicia and him were struggling to make ends meet. Alicia had pre-existing debts, and their finances were a real mess. Under normal circumstances, that would be grounds for divorce, but Bob is too smitten with Alicia. Probably because she's a beauty. So, on Bob's suggestion, to save on rent, they both moved into my grandmother's house. But to be honest, I couldn't care less about their situation.
I don't know why you came to me. Why don't you just stay in a motel or something until you find a new place?
Oh wait, you're broke, right? I said sarcastically to Alicia. She seemed to think I had no idea about their financial struggles. Suddenly she looked panicked and whispered,
"How did you know?"
Bob, perhaps not wanting this to be known, just kept quiet. Then, my grandmother chimed in.
"I told her."
She continued.
"Amy and Jake's home is really comfortable. It's spacious and clean, with all the latest appliances. It's worlds apart from where you lived before."
And she chuckled. Bob immediately bit back.
"What the hell? How come you guys have money? Weren't you drowning in debt?"
His pride seemed hurt, and he was shouting in disbelief. I kindly informed him.
"Aside from our salaries, we also get a percentage of the profits. So, I believe we earn significantly more than you. Plus, we're a two-income household. We probably make double what you do, easy."
"No way." Bob seemed stunned on the other end of the line.
"You always said being a salaried worker was the right path. Turns out, we're living a much wealthier life than you. You really had tunnel vision, didn't you?"
I couldn't help but laugh. I could hear Bob growling over the phone. Upon realizing our affluence, Alicia started to butter me up.
"Then can we stay at your place, Amy? If your house is that big, there should be room for us, right?"
What a ridiculous proposal. I promptly declined.
"Absolutely not. Didn't you specifically ask us not to rely on you? We've cut ties with you guys, so don't come crawling back now. Find your own way."
With that, I hung up. They've tried calling multiple times since, but I just ignore them. I never want to have anything to do with people like Bob and Alicia again. I hope they realize and regret their actions. Eventually, I heard they were caught shoplifting. The police contacted me, and I got to know about it. Apparently, Alicia's debt had snowballed to a point where Bob's salary alone couldn't cover it. Alicia even seemed to be taking her grandmother's pension. Debt collectors started showing up at Bob's workplace, which led to his debts being exposed and him getting fired. With no income, repaying their debts became even harder. Bob and Alicia seemed to have been struggling even for daily meals. As a result, they apparently shoplifted sandwiches and bread from a convenience store, and the store's staff reported them, leading to their arrest. Seems they've hit rock bottom. According to the police, they wanted me as their guarantor.
"I messed up. I'm sorry, just look out for us,"
Bob pleaded. But it's too little too late. Even Alicia, who usually had no regrets, seemed genuinely remorseful.
"Please help us. I'll apologize for everything. Just give us a hand."
I heard Alicia has been pleading this way through the police. But this whole mess started because of Alicia's reckless spending. Bob being oblivious was also a problem. They brought this upon themselves. And after what they did to my dear grandmother, I can never forgive them. They can keep struggling for all I care. 3 months have passed since then. My grandmother is still alive and well. Which brings me so much joy. I took a caregiving leave and have been staying by her side. There's a real advantage to having a flexible job. Even though she has her tough moments, on her good days, we can walk around the garden together. These times are the most enjoyable and therapeutic for me. Grandma, your birthday's coming up. Is there anything you'd like to eat? I asked her. She responded,
Maybe a cake baked by you, Amy.
Even now, she tries to make me feel better about my subpar cooking skills, and it really tugs at my heartstrings. I still want to be with my grandma, and I feel I haven't done enough for her. Every day, I want to make even just a little more memories with her. And I plan to be by her side for as long as she's with us.